Here I have two versions of the same recording. In the first one, we can quite easily follow along with the bass line, and the kick drum is clear and punchy. And if I emulate listening to this in small speakers by adding a high-pass filter at 150 Hz, it's still possible to clearly hear what the bass instruments are doing. In the other version of the mix, we can also hear the electric bass and the kick drum, at least when listening in bigger speakers or full-range headphones. And the sound of the kick and bass is a bit different, but they're still audible. But if I now enable the bass cut filter, then the bass line becomes more difficult to hear and the kick drum almost disappears completely. We can compare the two versions with the high-pass filter enabled. So why is this happening? Well, the cause of this problem and many other bass translation issues can be traced to how we view bass instruments while mixing. And I'm sure that some of you watching may already know exactly where I'm going with this. It's one of those things that once you figure it out, a lot of other things regarding bass and bass translation click into place. So that's what this video is about. My name is Thomas and I have this channel together with Sofia, and here we talk about audio mastering. So the central idea of good bass translation is to view the bass instruments as full-range instruments when mixing. This actually solves a lot of bass-related problems. It's easy to put all focus on the low end while mixing bass instruments, and there can certainly be bass translation issues that come from uneven or boomy bass. But when it comes to bass translation to smaller speakers, the things happening above the bass area are the only things that really matter. And we can listen to the electric bass in this example. So the fundamental frequencies and some of the lowest harmonics of the notes are clearly in the bass area. This is why this is considered to be a bass instrument. But there is also quite a lot of energy in the mids. There are more harmonics, and these are very important for the character and the timbre. If these frequencies are missing, then the bass tends to sound quite anonymous. It's also harder to follow the pitch of the notes if these harmonics are missing. Our ears have worse pitch detection for bass frequencies, so the brain tends to latch onto the harmonics in order to figure out what notes are being played. And higher up in the spectrum, there are more things happening like finger noise, fret noise, and other parts of the sound that helps the ear hear the attack and the articulation and the timing and so on. And these things that happen above the bass area are very important for how we perceive the bass. I think of these upper parts as sort of the vowels and consonants of the performance. Just like the human voice has the fundamentals in the lower mids, but we also need the formants and the consonants in the upper mids to hear exactly what words are being sung or spoken. We usually need these upper parts of the bass guitar, or else it can sound a bit mumbling or unclear. And it's the same thing with the kick drum. The fundamental thump of the drum is in the low end, but a lot of the clarity and the attack comes from the upper mids. This is where we can hear the beater hitting the drum skin and other high frequency parts of the drum sound. And just as with the bass guitar, these high frequency sounds are very important for how well we perceive the attack and timing of each hit. And many bass translation issues come from this kind of problem, that the upper parts of the instrument is missing or is too quiet. And that's especially true for how the mix translates to small speakers. The mix with the bad bass translation that we heard in the beginning of the video was made by simply removing the highs from the kick and the bass guitar. And the kick drum is clearly less audible without the upper parts of the sound. And if I try to fix that by raising the level of the kick, then the kick gets more audible, but the whole mix also gets more bass heavy and uneven. So I still have bad translation to small speakers, and now I also have an uneven low end. And the root cause of this problem is that I haven't let the kick drum be a full range instrument. And full range in this context doesn't have to mean all the way up to 20 kilohertz. It just means a range that is wide enough to include all parts of the instrument and of the performance that are necessary for it to have presence and clarity within the mix. And as I said in the beginning, this may not be news to you at all, but if you haven't thought about bass instruments in this way before, then this insight can really help with a lot of bass-related problems. When me and Sofia get mixes for mastering that have some sort of bass issue, it's very common that the root cause of those problems can be traced back to the upper parts of the bass instrument not being clear enough within the mix. As we just saw, this can lead to decisions that cause other kinds of bass problems. And in a busy mix, there can certainly be challenges with making the upper parts of the bass instruments fit in among everything else. But viewing the bass instruments as full range instruments is especially important in dense mixes. And in my experience, things tend to fall into place more easily with this mindset. So that's it for this video. Hope you found it helpful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.